So for those of you who are experienced gamers or who've been in the gaming scene for just a few years, all the way through decades, you know that Ubisoft's biggest weakness is in releasing games in an incomplete fashion sometimes. Or one of their biggest things that they did, and they still do because they got away with the Ghost Recon Breakpoint, is they will show you a trailer that looks so good, pristine and clean, and then when the game is released, you're not going to get that. I cannot believe how they sold that with Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I also fell for that this time, because the footage that they showed looked like a little middle ground between, gameplay and, animated production. So it was a little easy to sell because they actually did it just right. But the truth eventually came out, and the community spat that game out most of the time. Now, there are people who love Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I'm not making this video to beat on the game. I got Uplay Plus in order to play for a little bit, but the game is just not appealing to me as I thought it would, because I think they changed a lot of the systems from Wildlands. I was expecting Wildlands type game. I got another game. But in this video, I want to talk about Ubisoft's greatest strength, their biggest strengths. In fact, what sets them apart in the entire industry. And it's a very simple thing that they do. They've hired some of the best people that can do this particular thing in terms of game development and game design, and they execute it almost perfectly every single time. Do you know what that is? For those of you who are gamers, you already know what it is. It's world building and world design. So there was something in the news a number of months ago. The Notre Dame Cathedral was on fire. It literally was burning, and reports went out that Assassin's Creed Unity was actually being looked at as a 3D depiction of the Notre Dame Cathedral. And so this was something that people were looking at, talking about how detailed this Notre Dame depiction in Assassin's Creed Unity was actually a one-to-one mapping, even to the point that Ubisoft and the designers in charge of coming up with this, with the whole concept, were able to map the game one-to-one using the help of a historian, and even taking some structures and putting them in exactly the same way you see them. I mean, they also had to take note of copyright because some things were copywritten, and so they had to kind of make modifications, which is something that Ubisoft usually does. So Ubisoft went ahead and gave out Assassin's Creed Unity for free, which I got and I downloaded, and from here you can see that this company actually puts in a lot of time in developing their open world. And this is just Assassin's Creed Unity, and that was in the news, and I'm sure it probably went past a lot of people's, head. Some people didn't even know what was going on in that case, but some of us in the gaming community actually did know. And then that moves me on to another Ubisoft IP that is, in a very scary way, very close to the city, and that's the Division 1. A lot of New Yorkers will tell you that the way that they've depicted the Division 1 is, in a scary way, very accurate to what New York City is, even to the point of specific locations, specific buildings. Now, granted, they've had to, change names or hide names or remove names from these buildings, but nonetheless, this does not mean that these specific landmark buildings are actually not in the map of Manhattan that they put together, which a lot of people were really excited at the end of life of the Division 1's patch 1.8. A lot of people were excited thinking that they were going to keep expanding on New York because they had seen other parts of the map. People had already glitched their way through parts of the map that was still remaining, and they thought that the Division developers were going to keep moving on in that direction, but they decided that they were going to go to DC, which, in terms of DC, they traveled from, their studio. I think Malmö, Sweden is where Massive is located, and they actually got a one-to-one depiction of Washington, DC in such a wonderful way that a lot of people, in fact, let me give you an example. Somebody made a comment on, I don't know if it's one of my videos or if it's another video. They said, this game is in such a bad place, and every day when I walk to work, I walk by this particular location that always reminds me of the game, because they live in DC, and they said it just makes the state of the game much more painful for me, because I not only have to play the game every day, I have to live the game every day. Do you know what that means? That means that this game is embedded or etched in your psyche, because it's a game that you're actively playing daily. You're actually farming, you're actually running to these locations, and in real life, you're actually doing the exact same thing, walking through these locations and seeing these places and how they look similar. It's like your escape world is your regular world almost daily. Fine, a more abandoned version of it But I think Ubisoft's biggest strength is that they do this. And at the base level, I think it's one of the best things that any gaming company can do in their open world design. They can take that open world design, be it in a realistic form, or be it in an animated form, or be it in a world that they've imagined themselves to create, and do a very good job. And why I'm making this video is because this Ubisoft's greatest strength, in my opinion, is exactly what they need to build upon and continue to do. So what does that mean? Well, like I started out this video with Ubisoft's biggest weakness, which is releasing buggy games, but their biggest strength is releasing beautiful games. So The Division 2 is a beautiful depiction of DC, but it can be buggy in some cases. It can feel a little, underachieving because its implementation of the systems are not really that strong. So what can they do? They can take the philosophy of doing pristine world design and start implementing it into doing pristine game design, in making sure details are actually in the place that they need to be. You have to look at many other games that do this also and execute this as flawlessly as possible and see how they do it. And I think with Ghost Recon Breakpoint, they had such a wonderful opportunity to make a game that was as pristine as Metal Gear Solid 5, which is definitely done by somebody who has, high standards, Hideo Kojima standards. I mean, this guy just literally in Death Stranding created his own subgenre of video games. Oh my gosh. But if you're going to be a company that's contending with the best in the business, then you have to take your best practices and start to adapt them everywhere. It may be expensive, but is the cost worth it? I think it is. I think on the long term, these kinds of games that are built in a beautiful way, that are fun to play, pristinely executed, will always sell themselves. The Witcher 3 is one of such games. Now, its world and the technology it was built on is nothing as beautiful as Ubisoft can come up with, but at the same time, the game is quite decent in its execution, and CD Projekt Red, it's obvious that they put in a lot of work. Sure, it's not Ubisoft level detail, but it is absolutely marvelous and gorgeous in the way it's executed, no doubt. But then they took those same principles of developing a wonderful world and put that into gameplay execution, which has made The Witcher 3 sell millions and millions of copies even years after its release. I don't think The Division 2, if they don't start fixing a lot of its issues, or games like Ghost Recon, will sell that long if gameplay execution is not implemented. And I'm making this video because I want to see Ubisoft do well. I want to see this company succeed, and I owe them nothing, but I have to say that it is because of an Ubisoft game that I'm a YouTuber of any caliber. Small YouTuber, tiny YouTuber, little YouTuber, micro YouTuber, whatever you want to categorize my channel in. It started from an Ubisoft game, an Ubisoft concept that people dreamed of, people worked hard on, and people allowed for people like me to be able to make content and engage a community with. So as much as there's a lot of negative news out there about the company, there are positive things that can be highlighted, and I want to just take time to highlight the positive sides. Yes, I'll also point out the negatives, but can we just once in a while put aside, the things that are good, and then start to execute those, and talk about those things, and hopefully that they, the decision makers, can start to see that their philosophy and design is actually one of the most powerful in the industry, and then start having that same design philosophy being seen in every aspect of their games. Menu design, UI design, which they're very good at, by the way. Amazing. The way they implemented this new Division 2's Title Update 6 UI. I mean, massive. Just they took it out. They took it a different notch, above what we even know. I mean, if you see the structures in the game, you won't even know that this is a video game sometimes. But then when it comes to gameplay, that's the area where they're lacking. And I hope that they can actually get better and make sure that they quality test these things before they bring them out to the community. If they keep doing this, I see Ubisoft's market valuation in the next 5 years being bigger than EA. They have the opportunity. I see them taking Activision head on, even though Activision has a lot more money flowing in from Tencent, and Ubisoft does have some Tencent money as well flowing in, but I think the quality overall is where Ubisoft has the opportunity, because now they have a big library and a big catalog All they need to do is execute that library flawlessly. They've not touched Splinter Cell. They need to go back to the good old Ghost Recon and execute that flawlessly as a single player game, not worrying about this multiplayer stuff. Rainbow Six is already taking care of their multiplayer stuff. They can always harvest that and harness Rainbow Six and take For Honor into the esports area and use that as well as another aspect of multiplayer, esports, global competitive gaming scene. But there are other IPs that are dear to people. They have to continue to harness those. Far Cry, great IP, great line of products. Assassin's Creed, great line of products. Old Prince of Persia games. Are they not going to write another Prince of Persia game? They could write a series of these games that will provide for an open world God of War style combat game where you fight against big creatures. Come on. There are so many things that Ubisoft can do. And I'm just hoping that they wake up to the goals that they already have and not seek microtransactions and seek all these business practices that always lead to failure, because the gaming community cannot take it. I mean, if they want to learn anything about microtransactions, they need to learn from Monolith Games and Warner Brothers, who made the decision, even though it was 6 months later or so, to take out a microtransaction store from Middle-earth Shadow of War. If they take away the microtransactions, which they don't need, I think they will win goodwill with the players. Now, I don't know if they can take it out easily as Monolith and Shadow of War did, but it is a possibility. They cannot say, oh, well, it's already in the game and we can't do it. They can do it. They know exactly what they need to do, and they need to keep doing it to make sure that they remain one of the best gaming, publishing, and production companies in the industry. All right, that's all I have for today. Thank you very much for your time and audience. If you want to subscribe. If you want to click the like, do whatever you want. Leave a comment in the comment section, and I guess I'll see you in the next video. Peace.